Hello, students. Yes, I am a vampire potato. You're going to have to get used to it. So that's what happened to me on the plane. Don't let it happen to you. Okay. First, I hope you watched. No, I know you watched the Keltex video on formatting your screenplay. This is the what we call a single column or screenplay format. So I'm not going to talk about how to do it, but I am going to talk about the components of it, give you a few definitions. After that, I'm going to go into stuff that will either make or break your screenplay. And that is the different types of scenes. I'm not going to go into every scene, but I will be talking about some scenes. And I think it will be stuff you may not have thought about, but will recognize. Anyway, so let's get the formatting stuff out of the way. You should know what all these terms mean, and you should know how to access these features in Keltex. So every scene starts with the same thing, a scene heading. And a scene heading is broken into three parts: interior, exterior, location, and then day or night. Easy. So the first thing is interior, exterior. INT dot or EXT dot. It simply states whether your scene takes place inside somewhere or it takes place outside somewhere. Easy. Next is the location. You have to be specific with this. You cannot simply put interior, house. A house can have a lot of different rooms. If your character is reading a book in the bathroom, well, it's a very different thing than if she's reading in the garage. If your character is smoking weed in the kitchen, it's a very different thing than if they're smoking weed in the attic. Now, similarly, saying something like exterior, New York City, that's too vague. Are we in Bed-Stuy? Are we in Times Square? Are we in Staten Island? All these places look super different, so be specific. And the next part is also super easy, day or night. Now, those are your two choices. When is your scene happening, day or night? No 3:30 or around noon. It's day or it's night. All right, so all that, those three parts are called the scene heading. You'll also hear to them referred to as a slug line. So if I accidentally say slug line in class, know that I'm talking about a scene heading. The next part is what you will struggle with the most. It's called description of action. And that name means exactly what it says. This is where you describe action. Now, is she is sad an action? No. Is she sits down and cries an action? Yes, that is an action. She sits is an action. She cries is an action. So I want you to think back to your visual writing exercise where you turned words into images and then images into words. Also think back to in class when I had you guys write down and describe what you saw in each panel of the comic book. Remember how it was so simple? You weren't describing what someone said, you were just describing what someone saw. There were no feelings, description of feelings. That was to prepare you to write this, the description of action. If you can't see it and you can't hear it, don't write it, ever. End of story. This is undoubtedly the hardest part, but also the most important part that you will write in your script. Yes, this is where you write down what your characters do. Not what they feel, not what they say, what they do. Finally, it's dialogue. And you know what that is and how to format it from the Keltex video. So I'm not going to cover it. The only thing I'm going to say is this one golden rule: keep it short. Lazy writers dump everything they're too stupid to figure out how to put in a more clever way. Clever writers don't do that. They are concise and they pack their words with meaning. I'm going to say one other thing about dialogue, and we'll get into it another time, but Good dialogue has your characters saying the exact opposite of what they really mean a lot of times. Because in real life, we do that. If we love someone, we'll often tell them, I don't love you, because of all sorts of human emotions. But we'll get into that later. So that's all I'm going to say about formatting. Now let's talk about the different kinds of scenes that make up your screenplay.